comments about, this is intended to be very respectful, very helpful. I'm not going to give you a bad comment. And I'm going to try to keep this moving right along, okay? So, I've already managed to go, there we go. So we've got a lot to cover. We're going to try to race straight through this, all right? I'd like to spend just a few minutes with you talking about my qualifications so you understand what they are, and some examples of how the 2013 and 2014 Deeper Light and Power budgets are really messed up. Talk a little bit about what I see as a real issue here after having watched a lot of discussion over the past couple of months, where I would start, or I recommend that Deeper Light and Power start, and suggested strategic goal into the future, financially responsible goals. I'm an HL&P customer, and I live at 255 Interlochen Drive, if you need that for the record. And I have a couple degrees in engineering, a long time ago, 40 years of auto and truck and component manufacturing experience. And I have to say, in relative terms, you guys have extremely generous benefits. That's very, very generous. 20 of those years were in operations management, meaning that I ran manufacturing plants for the past 20 years, both here in the United States and overseas. And in all 5 cases, they were all turnaround situations, and all 5 of them were successfully turned around. The smallest one was $30 million in year sales. The largest one was $250 million in year sales. So these organizations range from 100 people to 600 people, something of that nature. And coming into an organization like that, where there's a lack of fiscal performance, and where there's some doubt about their capabilities, the first thing that I did for myself was I always sat down and looked at how things been going over time. Now, in the case of Deeper Light and Power, all we could see were the 3 documents: the 2014-18 strategic plan, the 2014 budget, and the 2013 audited financial statements. As of yesterday, I understand there's more information out there. But that's not really the point. The point is to say, if you sat down and did a year-to-year comparison, here's what I think you would find. Okay? 2013 budget forecast as compared to 2012 actual results. And what we're looking at here is operating income before depreciation, because it's easier to compare year to year. And it's comprised of 3 major components: revenue, money coming in from the ratepayers, cost of sales expense, and operating expense. And I'm sure you're familiar with the details of those. And here's what you see in the 2013 budget as compared to the 2012 actual. Revenue, well, the 2012 actual operating income was $2.7 million. The 2013 budget was a loss of $300,000. So revenue for 2013 budget was down 5%, cost of sales expense up 28%, and operating expense up 10%, as compared to the prior year actual. So how did the performance come out as compared to the budget? Well, the performance actually came out to be about $2 million better than the budget. What a surprise. It was $300,000 in terms of electricity sales. In other words, they had $300,000 more revenue than they expected in the budget. $900,000 contributed capital and impact fees that were never even in the budget, and they have been every year. And they're about $900,000 every year if you look back at the history. And $1 million less purchase power than was forecasted. So, well, revenues were going to be down, expenses were going to be up, and purchase power was going to be quite a bit up. And then when you go back in hindsight and take a look at it, you say, no, actually, that didn't really happen. It came out about the same as 2012. Now, there's one other difference. In 2013, there was a $700,000 ledger write-off. We understand where that went. We understand why it happened. And I'm sure you do too. There were some mistakes made. They were corrected. Okay? So, it was $1.4 million better even with that write-off. $2 million better than budget. Without the write-off. So, 2014 as compared to 2012 and 2013 actual results. Okay, this is the 2014 budget compared to the past 2 years, rather than just one. Operating income before depreciation is down 68% in the budget as compared to the past 2 years actual. If you look at it, 58% of that is ledger adjustment. So there's a pretty big chunk of it that's ledger adjustment. Revenue, even with a 4.5% rate increase, is down 1%. So if you take out that 4.5% rate increase, revenue is down 5.5% from the average of 2012 and 13. Sounds realistic to me. Yes. Cost of sales expenses are up 16%. So even though we're expecting to sell less electricity, we're going to buy 14% more power from the outside market, and we're going to spend 32% more on generator maintenance and fuel than we have in the past 2 years. And then when we get to operating expense, it's up 9%. I don't want to talk about that. You guys are digging into that. We've got lots of things in. So, but what we see is a lot less revenue and a lot more expense, although the underlying volume increases only actually 3%. Okay? So that's how the 2014 budget was set up compared to the past 2 years. And I might note that if you look at the total expenses in the 2014 budget that you folks approved, or the Heber Light and Power Board approved on the 18th of December, they're actually almost $2 million higher than the forecast in the strategic plan that was approved on the 9th of December. Go back and look. Somehow or another it changed almost $2 million from the 10-day period. So what do I think a realistic 2014 budget would look like? And how do I have the right to even say this? I don't. Okay? Except that I have accumulated experience looking at this kind of stuff. And I think it makes sense for somebody to sit back, look at the whole picture and say, well, based on the history, what's reasonable for 2014? Okay? And if you do that, the 2014 budget should be better by at least $3 to $4 million than what it actually is in terms of operating income. You've got the ledger adjustment, which should be zero for I hope they're not planning to make $400,000 worth of accounting errors, so it should be zero. Revenue with a 4.5% increase is down 1%, but let's say with no increase. Without the increase, this budget shows a decline in revenue of $600,000. It should be even. It should be the same as 2012 and 13. So there's 600 grand that somebody set away and said, not going to happen compared to the past 2 years. Impact fees aren't in the budget. Again, for the second time in a row. That's $1 million more revenue than what's been planned on. But if you go back and look again, it happens every year. Cost of sales expenses are up 16%. That's $1 million more expense than on the average the past 2 years. And operating expense is up $900,000 more than the average of the past 2 years. That's this year's budget. And yet, I sat in some Heber Light and Power board meetings where I hear the Heber Light and Power management saying, we don't have any money. We're going to go under. Please, please. And you guys were nice enough to give up part of your city budgets to help them out. Pretty nice folks. So, repeat it again. If you went back and just took the average of 2013 and 14, took out that $700,000 write-off, and said, let's use that as the budget for 2014 without the rate increase, it should be $3 to $4 million higher. Yeah. So, what are the issues that you prefer to talk about? And I'm hustling. We've all heard about the situation with the CFO and the board of directors increasing pay and so on and so forth. The 2 new board members removed and 2 old ones reinstated. I don't think there's been a lot of conversation in this area about Rocky Mountain Power needing another line to serve Park City and Brighton to go through Heber. And oh, by the way, Park City was to have paid for that. They turned it down. So this $8 million for this extra line is kind of convenient. But what's the real issue? It's not any of those ones. It's credibility. we should trust that the 2014 budget is correct? Is there any reason why we should believe that people in all good faith are saying we don't have any money? You know, I have very, very high regard for people that do work. I've worked with them for a long, long time. Everybody has to take home a paycheck for their family. Everybody has to have insurance, cover bad things that happen. That's true no matter where in the world you are. This credibility issue has nothing to do with the average Hebrew light and power person out there doing work. They do a great job. Okay? We're not talking about them. We're talking about the credibility right now of three documents that are out for public review. So, if I was coming into this business, and I'm not interested in doing that, I can't physically, where would I start? Well, first thing I do is go back to the 2014 budget, sit down with the controller and say, what the heck makes sense here in comparison to the past 2 years? Let's figure that out. Then I'd start right now on the 2015 strategic plan, using baseline financials and volumes from the past 5 years. So you really ought to be looking at this in terms of cost per megawatt hour or something. Okay? Open up the process for public input. I think that you can afford that if it's specifically targeted to be about, let's figure out where the company should be going financially in the future. I think you can afford that focused public input. And then agree on some strategic goals with justified investment, develop some action plans to make sure those strategic goals are achieved. And, you know, this is nothing new, this is typical. But opening it up to the public and having them guided and focused is very important. And I would suggest that start now rather than waiting for finding the next representative. You need to find the right person with the right stuff, no doubt. I don't know what that is. But in the meantime, if you want to have some credibility, a process of this nature needs to start now. If you look at the current strategic plan goals, the mission is to be a recognized leader, and that's wonderful. The two greatest risks pointed out for customers are the rising price of purchase power, which is 50% of expenses, and a single line from Rocky Mountain Power with the risk of outage or brownouts, which apparently doesn't happen until 5 years from now. We're not going to do anything about it for the next 5 years. And the goals in the plan are to manage wholesale energy assets. That's how we're going to deal with the rising price of purchase power. And then to install an $8 million interconnection line 5 years down the road. Okay? And then, you know, the other goals are to have a 4.5% per year rate increase, continue with great safety security, and have well-trained people. And those last couple, the great safety and the well-trained people, I think are honorable goals and should be at the top of anybody's list. Here's what I think they should be going forward. Strengthen the leadership team. And I'm talking about strategic here. I'm not talking about, you know, does somebody know how to use the latest Excel program or whatever. I'm talking about things like fiscal skills and accountability, being able to read financial statements, being able to understand cash flow, that kind of stuff, so that they can be accountable for it. And strengthen them in terms of performance orientation. I don't see a single thing in any of the documents about strategic plans and budgets to say anything about performance, other than we're just going to keep doing what we've always done, we're going to do it safely, we're going to make sure you have electricity, and here's what it's going to cost you. Okay? Install rigorous cost management. I think the outside accounting companies have already told you that the cost management here is not rigorous enough. And I know that it's being worked on right now, but I do think in terms of the credibility of the company, it is a strategic objective. And then the next question is, what can we really afford to do? Well, still meeting our goals. Not what's the greatest thing on earth to do, but what can we afford to do and meet our goals? Improve operating performance. You should be seeing things get better every year. 16% more, 20% more from year to year. And I think that operating performance should be based on volume. In industry, we say, how much does it cost us to make a widget? How much do we sell it for? Will the cost better be less than the sales? And every year we work on making that better. Or our customers do it, China. Pretty simple. Justify every investment. In some cases, that's not so easy to do financially with either light and power. There are cases where it makes sense to buy a new pole because the old one's falling down and has to be replaced. But beyond that, if you're thinking about, let's make an investment that gives us some payback rather than let's just spend $8 million or whatever the number is, you think differently. That leadership team would think differently. So we expect a return on our money. Okay? I would suggest that another goal would be to reduce dependency on coal-based purchase power. And here you see my personal leanings come to bear. There's no need for that second line, that $8 million second line. What there's a need for is more electricity generation here, so we're no longer relying on that second line, and we don't have to pay for it. Let HL&P buy it. We don't need to pay for it. Why don't we take that money or other money and invest it in renewable energy production rather than the diesel and natural gas road that we're on right now, and invest it with justification, with a real payback. That could be solar panels, that could be pump storage, could be geothermal, could be lots of things. And an example of a town that's looking at that right now is Logan. I'm sure you've all heard about the Logan Renewable Energy Conservation Advisory Board, RECAB. The thing is that if you think about it, with the cost of other renewable energy options coming down to what it is today, there's absolutely no reason why Heber Lake Power should be spending money to buy a line that isn't going to protect us from future purchase power costs and isn't going to protect us from power outages. Why don't we spend some money doing something that's going to cover both bases and have a return, which will show the expenses going down over the time rather than staying level or going up over time. Okay, that's it. Was that 10 minutes?
Very well.
All right. And then, after all of that, let's all take a look at whether a rate increase is needed. My guess is if it is,